Ineffa is coming to Genshin Impact in 5.8 with a vacuum attached to her arm, which is fitting given the fact we're trying to vacuum up your Primo gems before 6.0. But do not cry, she's worth a pull for all players. For long-term players, she goes straight into the strongest teams for some of your strongest existing units. For newer players, she's so good you can plug her in almost anywhere and she'll clean up like the good little Henry the Hoover that she is. I'm going to summarise everything you need to know in an easy to understand way, but first let's look at the sponsor, Loot Bar. They sell in-game currency for all kinds of gachas including Genshin Impact and Star Rail, and it's up to 25% cheaper than in-game. They even have a 10% off coupon for new users so you can save even more. Personally, I find the in-game prices are a bit too much, but the Loot Bar prices are a lot more reasonable. They worked with other creators you might have heard of like Supera Tom and Raiden Shotgun, and have over 20,000 positive Trustpilot reviews. They're completely safe, but you can check their reputation on Google first if you want to. They are quite a well-known company, even outside of gacha. You only need the UID and server, and your crystals will go through immediately. Check the link in the description to grab some discounts. So, what does Ineffa do and how do we play her? Simply put, press a skill and she'll give you a shield, as well as drop in a robot that deals electro damage on tech. Her burst deals a big instance of electro damage and also triggers a passive giving the on-fielder elemental mastery that scales off her attack. You'll want to play her with Hydro because she changes the electro charge reaction into lunar charged. I could spend 5 to 10 minutes explaining what that is, but no one wants to listen to all of that. I'll set a challenge to explain it in 30 seconds instead. Basically, electro charge is triggered when you have electro and hydro on the enemy. Every second it deals an instance of electro damage and removes some of the electro and hydro. It stops dealing damage when at least one of the two elements is completely gone. Lunar charged is similar, but it ticks every 2 seconds instead of 1, and it can crit. As of right now, Lunar charged is worse than electro charged, but it simply existing on the enemy triggers Ineffa's passive, making a robot deal an extra instance of damage every time it attacks. This is where most of Ineffa's damage comes from. Look at that, less than 30 seconds, get in. To summarise everything, use his skill to drop Ineffa's robot a bit like Fischl's Oz, Burst to deal big electro damage and buff the on-fielder's elemental mastery, Robot deals an extra instance of damage every time it attacks as long as the enemy has lunar charged on them, so make sure to apply a lot of hydro and electro for more lunar charged uptime. It's easy to see when it's on the enemy because it puts a massive rain cloud above their head, which is kinda reminiscent of the ever-looming Chi-Chi when you hit the 50-50. In terms of weapons, the signature will be best, surprise surprise. It gives 66% crit damage, 24% attack after using a skill or burst, as well as 40% lunar charge damage to the team. Other crit weapons will work too if you don't go for the signature, especially ones that also give some attack like Staff of Homer, Jade Spear, or Escoffia, Sino and Emily's weapons. The Battle Pass weapons both work too, but if you go with Ballad of the Fjords, you'll want a third element for its passive. If you want to go for attack weapons you can do. Calamity Queller gives attack, and some more attack. Lithic Spear gives attack and crit rate and is good for teams with a lot of Liyue characters. Missive Wind Spear was an event weapon from a while ago that gives attack and elemental mastery. If you're struggling for attack and crit options, you could always go with an energy recharge weapon. Let's be honest, you weren't building it in her artifact, so you're only going to be able to use a burst once every 2 rotations. Energy recharge weapons will make it easier to use a burst every rotation, which is nice for the big instance of electro damage, but also uptime on the elemental mastery buff she gives to the on-fielder. Skyward Spine has high base attack and 8% crit rate. Engulfing Lightning gives a bunch of energy recharge as well as up to 80% attack. The event weapon Owanashi has high base attack as well as 40% attack from the passive. Favonius Lance has high base attack as well as energy particles for the team. For artifact sets, she doesn't have one as of right now, but there's been talk of a signature set when Notcry comes out. For now, you can give a 4-piece Tenacity, giving the team shield, strength and attack. Thundering Fury gives more lunar charge damage. 4-piece Scroll is an option, but she'll only give a 12% elemental damage buff, not the full 40% because she's not from Natlan. 2-piece is an option too if you just want to push her attack higher. TLDR of Ineffa's stats, build her like a DPS but with an attack goblet instead of electro, so attack sands, attack goblet and a crit circlet. The reason you want an attack goblet instead of electro is because she has a passive talent that buffs the team's lunar charge damage scaling off her attack with a cap once she hits 2000. If she had good multipliers, you'd probably still want an electro goblet, but she doesn't, so just go attack. On to teams. Just make sure you have plenty of Hydro and Electro application and you'll be good. Animo units also work with her because they're not going to remove your Electro and Hydro auras. There are some other elements that could work, which we'll talk about in a second, but first, let's look at some more standard teams. Nuvalet's getting another buff with the release of Ineffa, so maybe now he'll finally be usable. Farina obviously takes the second slot. For the flex, you can have either of Kazuha or Shilonen. Ineffa has decent off-field damage, which makes this team as strong, and some have even argued stronger than current Nuvalet teams. The shield has value too for providing him with some much needed resistance to interruption. For those that prefer to invest horizontally, which means collecting more characters as opposed to keeping their roster small and obtaining constellations, Ineffa is going to be a solid addition to your Nuvalet teams. Ineffa having a vacuum on her arm is fitting because it means you can play with other characters this suck, like Barbara. All jokes aside, while Barbara definitely isn't one of the strongest characters in the game, she is a character we all get for free early on. If you're a newer player trying to build a team, then you'll be glad to know you can play them with Fischl and Xingqiu. Barbara on field, spamming normal attacks while holding the craftable weapon Hakushin Ring to buff the team's Electro and Hydro damage is going to be a solid team, and to be honest, probably one that's strong enough for endgame content too. If you want to take the team up a gear, then Kogumi's another character getting buffed with Ineffa. Mono Hydro has always been one of my favourite teams in the game, but there's a flexibility to it in that you can drop a unit and put in a flex to fit whichever meta the game's currently running with. Having an Electro unit, especially one from Nodcry to break in the new region, is nice for Kokumi. When she first came out, people weren't too happy about her, but I'd say after Yelan, there's a strong argument that she's aged better than any of the 2.x units. Nalu's another unit that appreciates a new teammate. Basically, you press Nalu's skill and you're faced with an option. Press the skill a few more times to turn her into a Bloom support, or press normals to give a Hydro infusion on her normals and make her a DPS. When she launched in 3.1, no one used the DPS side of the kit because even though we had Yelan and Kazuha, we didn't have many good sustain options for her. She scales off HP so can't use Bennett, and when Farina replaced Yelan, it meant Zhongli was less viable because he didn't heal to counter Farina's bleed. Shilonen changed that and gave us our first genuinely strong Nalu DPS team. Escoffier paired with Lali gave us our second, and now Ineffa's given us our third. It's nice to have different team archetypes for our DPSs, so Nalu getting another is appreciated. Mualani's another Hydro DPS that appreciates another team archetype. For a long time, she was only used in Vape teams, and while they are her best teams, Escoffier give her another option. Just like with Nalu, Ineffa gives her a third archetype for Lunar Charge teams. Onto Electro DPSs, Cyno's getting some much needed love. A lot of people call Cyno their biggest regret because of how little they use him and how weak he is when we do. The Shilonen and Farina pair is strong enough to carry most DPSs though, and Ineffa makes it so that the team has genuine synergy. Cyno's infamous for his long burst duration, but Ineffa has 20 seconds of uptime on her skill, so it's not an issue for her. It goes without saying, Clorand will be even better than Cyno here. Aoife's another character that needs more teammates, and Ineffa works for him too. Mizuki and Sayu also synergize with Ineffa in a similar way, except with them not having the ability to use normals, you won't be able to use Yelan. For those who like cooking, you already know I'm gonna have some Arlecchino gameplay when Ineffa drops. Pairing her with a Hydro unit gives us a nice overvape team. There's also the option to put in a Dendro on fielder like Alhaitham or Cave. I could elaborate on all these teams, but instead I'll just save a discussion for the gameplay video when she drops. Overall, Ineffa is extremely versatile and I love units like that. She pairs well with some of the strongest DPSs in the game and can bring some less meta units up like Escoffier did for Cryo. With us getting closer to Nodcry, the hype for Genshin's about to blow up again, so if you want to talk about it, join my Discord and take it easy.